We all love hearing about those big eureka moments in science, right? The incredible breakthroughs. But what about all the stuff that happens before that moment? The hidden, painstaking work that actually makes those discoveries trustworthy? Well, that's what we're talking about today. We're going to pull back the curtain and look at what it really takes to build a scientific test that's, well, review-proof.
So let me ask you something. What do you think is the biggest, most dangerous threat to a huge scientific breakthrough? Is it a rival lab trying to beat you to the punch, maybe a sudden funding cut, or just a failed experiment? You might think it's one of those, but the real answer? It's probably not what you're expecting.
It's this: a disorganized notebook. Seriously. Or, a chaotic spreadsheet, data you can't trace back to its source. Because here's the thing, a discovery that you can't defend, it's like it never even happened. This is all about how even the most brilliant science can get completely derailed by bad prep, and more importantly, how to stop that from happening.
And that leads us to a scene that, trust me, plays out in labs all the time. We call it the high-stakes scramble. Just picture it. You've got this amazing team of scientists, right? They've developed a revolutionary new test. It's brilliant, but a huge critical review is just around the corner. And suddenly, it's total panic. They're frantically digging through old notes, trying to piece together months, maybe even years of work. You see, when reviewers come in, they're not actually looking for perfection. Nobody expects that. What they're really looking for is confidence. They have to be able to answer some key questions. Does this thing actually measure what you say it measures? Are the results consistent? Can we trust the data? Is there a solid plan to keep it working? It's all about building a case that's so strong, so airtight, that they can walk away and say, yup, this works. We can count on it.
So what kicks off that frantic, last-minute scramble? It usually starts with 4 little words. The most dangerous words in a lab, really. We'll document it later. It sounds so harmless, right? But that one phrase, that's the mindset that leads to all the problems. It creates gaps in the story, it's why data goes missing, it's why procedures are fuzzy, and those are the exact things that force you to redo tons of work right when the pressure is on.
And just look at the cost of that we'll do it later approach. When you wait, your entire focus is on reconstruction, trying to remember what you did weeks or even months ago. That can lead to massive delays and having to redo experiments. But if you're ready from day one, your focus is just on the review. What could have been a months-long nightmare of scrambling becomes just a few days of organized, focused work. I mean, the difference is it's staggering.
Okay, so how do we avoid that nightmare scenario? How do you get that predictable success instead of the last-minute scramble? Well, it really comes down to a fundamental shift in how you think. It's about adopting what we call a readiness mindset, right from the very beginning of a project.
And that brings us to the core idea here. Validation readiness. So what is that? It's pretty simple, really. It means your method doesn't just work in the lab. It means you've got the whole story behind it, the documents, the data you can trace, the quality controls, all buttoned up and ready to go at any time. Think of it like being in a state of permanent preparedness.
Now, it's really important to understand the difference between validation and readiness. Validation, that's the final exam. It's the big test that proves your method works. But readiness, that's all the homework you did along the way. It proves how you got to that answer. And just like in school, you can't just show up and ace the final exam if you haven't done the homework. Readiness is what makes passing that final test not just possible, but predictable.
All right, so this whole readiness mindset thing sounds great in theory, right? But how do you actually do it? What does it look like in practice? Well, we've broken it down into a pretty simple 4-part blueprint that anyone can use to build a scientific test that's truly review-proof. Here they are, the 4 pillars of a validation-ready method. First, you define your North Star. Second, create a perfect recipe. Third, keep a flawless record. And fourth, plan to prevent surprises. Think of these like building blocks. If you carefully put each one in place as you go along, you end up with something that's incredibly solid, stable, and ready for whatever comes its way. Step 1. Define your North Star. Honestly, everything starts with clarity. Before you even run the first sample, you need to define your purpose. It's a simple statement that answers 3 questions. What exactly are we measuring? Why is it important? And what decisions are we going to make with this information? That statement, that's your North Star. It guides every single decision you make from here on out. Okay, step 2 is to create a perfect recipe. What we're trying to do here is eliminate something called tribal knowledge. You know what I mean? It's that special trick that only Sarah knows, or that one setting on the machine that only Mike remembers. That's a huge risk.
A truly ready method is written down so clearly, so explicitly, with the exact materials, times, temperatures, everything, that a brand new person could walk into the lab, follow the steps, and get the exact same result. No secrets.
Pillar number 3 is all about keeping a flawless record. This is huge for building trust. A reviewer needs to be able to point to any final number on your report and trace it all the way back. Back to the calculation, back to the raw data point, back to the signal that came off the machine. That means every single thing has to be documented and linked. Who did what, when they did it, and why. You're basically creating an unbreakable chain of evidence.
And finally, step 4. You have to plan to prevent surprises. Look, things are going to go wrong, that's just science. But a robust method isn't fragile. It has defined limits and built-in controls that act like an early warning system. It's not about pretending problems won't happen. It's about seeing them coming from a mile away and already having a plan in place to deal with them before they can mess up your results.
Okay, so we've looked at the problem, that high-stakes scramble. We've talked about the solution, the readiness mindset. And we've gone through the blueprint, those 4 pillars. So now let's zoom out a bit and talk about why all of this matters. Because, let's be honest, it's a lot of meticulous work.
Because here's the most important thing to remember. This isn't just about paperwork. Readiness isn't about ticking a box for some reviewer. It is the absolute bedrock of trustworthy science. It's all that quiet, careful, diligent work that takes a really cool idea from a notebook and turns it into a reliable tool that we can all count on. And believe me, this affects every single one of us, pretty much every day. Think about it. That medical test that gives you an accurate diagnosis, the new medicines and therapies that are proven to be safe and effective, the data from clinical trials that shapes modern medicine, even the quality control on stuff we use every day. All of it, absolutely all of it, relies on this process. It's the invisible framework that makes sure the science we depend on is actually real. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. In science, a result is only as good as the evidence you have to back it up. So if that evidence can't be defended, if you can't show your work, can the science itself truly be trusted? It's something worth thinking about. Thanks for joining me.